for this course. And after you finish the course, you can decide whether you want to take the course or not. And I believe that some of you are not coming last week, so I need to remind you for the most important requirements for this course. So I will just jump into the grading policy. Okay, so I would like to remind you about this important requirement related to the course. And so, if you want to pass this course, you need to fulfill the 3 requirements. The first one is assignments. It's available in iLearning. And then the midterm exam, it will be conducted online by the iLearning system. And then the final report. Okay. And the homework, the assignment, and the online quizzes will contribute 40% to your grade. Meanwhile, for the midterm exam, it will contribute 30% for your final grade. And then the last one is the final report. It's 30%. Okay, so for the homework itself, we will have 4 online quizzes. Okay, you will have 4 online quizzes. The first 2 online quizzes must be completed before the midterm exam. Meanwhile, for the third one and the fourth online quizzes must be completed before the final exam. Okay. And apart from the quizzes, you will have 4 topic on discussion forum you need to fulfill as well. So the all topics must be completed before the final term exam. Okay, so I already informed you twice before the beginning of the course. So if any one of you are missing one of the assignments, I will not give you another chance because it's already delivered. You already know about these requirements. Okay, so remember about this. And the next one is 30% from the midterm exam. Okay, so for the midterm exam, it will be conducted online on November 4th. So I suggest you to set up a reminder on your phone on November 4th. Reminder on your phone on November 4th that you will have a midterm exam. The midterm exam will be available only for 24 hours. So it's only available one day. It starts from 00 in the morning until at 24 at the midnight. So it's only available 24 hours. Okay, so if you miss to do the midterm exam, there won't be a second chance for you to do the midterm exam. Okay, so you need to pay attention about this. So if you have any other activity during the day, please set aside the other activity and complete your midterm exam first. Okay? So after you finish the midterm exam, then you can just play around, or maybe if you have part-time job, then you can do. Okay? This is very important because a lot of students might forget about the midterm exam. Okay? This is very important. So another requirements is the final report. So you will do a final report instead of the final exam. So you need to form a group, one to two people in one group, two people maximum, and last week some of your friends already write down their groups, names, and student ID. So if some of you are not decided who is your teammates, you can start to write down and choose and decide when to do the presentation. Okay? So the schedule for the final report will be conducted between December 2 and December 30, between. Okay, so it's 5 weeks, every Monday. Okay, and this is the schedule sheet. Maybe you can write down after the class. And for each day, 7 to 8 groups will present. And once you write down, once you decide your name and the schedule sheet, changing schedule is not allowed. Okay, changing schedule is not allowed. So prepare yourself before the presentation day, and you must be ready on the day of the presentation. Okay, on the presentation day, all the group members must be present and must be participate in the presentation. If only one member attends, the absent members will not receive a grade. So you need to pay attention, because last semester there are some of the groups only present one member as the representative. No, you cannot do that. Okay, so both of two members need to come to class and present. Sorry. And the other groups who's not presenting on the presentation day are allowed for not attending the class. Yeah, so you need to come on the presentation day only. It's okay. So if it's not your turn to present, then you can skip the class. It's okay. So what's the final report is about? Since it's the course of database, so you need to create database project. And then you need to present in front of the class and explain the project title, and then introduction, functional requirement, database design, ER diagram, and schema diagram. I believe you, after you join some of the weeks, you will know how to do the following. And then you need to create one report file. So one group, one file, okay, which is consists of the following. I will show you again the file, the report file, and then before the presentation day, at least one day before, you need to submit to my email. Okay, submit to my email, Gmail or CYCU email. Both are okay. Okay. Do you have any questions related to the grading policy of this course? Any questions? I think everyone is clear, right? And again, late assignments or reports will not be accepted. Okay? So try your best not to miss the deadline. And here's the schedule. So today is the second week, so it's September 16. September 16. And starting from next week until November 25, the class will be conducted distance. So you will need to access your iLearning to study. And don't forget that we will have a midterm exam on the November of 4th. So don't forget to set up reminder on your phone. Okay. After the 9 weeks, so starting from December 2 until December 30, this is the presentation week. So you are take turns in doing the presentation. So after the class, you can start to write down your name with your teammates and student number. We have week 1, week 2, week 3 until week 5. And since we already have a report for the final, so you don't have final exam. So during this week, I will just give you an additional material on the iLearning, which is for your additional knowledge. Okay, so far so good. Any question? Any question? No? Okay. If you don't have question, then I can start to. So we can start the first chapter of the introduction of DBMS. Okay, so this is first chapter. So today we will learn about the basic fundamentals of database. Yeah. It includes the importance of data in organizations, and then we will look into the overview of the database system. And after that, we will study about the basic definitions and concepts of the database. You will know some of the basic definition about related to the database system. What is data, what is information, how to explain this both, and then the metadata, and then data dictionary, database itself, and then the components of database, and DBMS includes the components of DBMS. And we will try to compare the use between the traditional file system versus database system, And then we will look into some of the disadvantages of the traditional file system. And then we will look into some of the components of the DBMS. And then we'll discuss about the two sides of DBMS. Okay, so there are always two sides of something, right? The advantages of disadvantages. So it's like night and day, day and night, and then woman and man, something like that. And after that, we will study about the user classification and languages and interfaces related to DBMS. Okay, shall we start from the beginning? The introduction to database system. Okay, so talking about the organizations, can you give me an example of organizations is? So in an environment, do you think that university is an organization? Yes, yeah. So university is example is a part of organizations. So can you give me any examples of data might have from the university? A data. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So university have a data. Yeah, student and then teachers, faculties, and then the course. Yeah. So it's a data. So talking again about the organizations, we need to know that all organizations need to make decisions. Okay, even we are not talking about organizations, you as the person also make decisions every day, right? As simple as uh, what you're going to have for breakfast, and then what you're going to have for lunch, for dinner, and then whether to decide to go out with your friends or not. So it's part of the making decisions. And organizations also are making decisions, and it's part of the critical things or critical activity doing by the organizations. So when making decisions, you need to have some reliable and accurate resources, right? So here we are talking about data. So when we have an accurate and reliable data, which is very crucial for decision making in organizations. So we need kind of resources, data, for making the decisions. And managing data effectively in this information-rich environment is the key factor for organizations to survive and to be a success. And without the data management in the organizations, it can be challenging for the organizations to through the vast amounts of information available and extract what is truly valuable. So with the use of database system, it can simplify the data management task, and of course, it can enable the timely extractions to the useful information needed for the decision making. So the organizations that can successfully manage and utilize their data will thrive in the information age by leveraging the power of the database management system, so they can ensure that the data is accurate, reliable, and ready available, which is giving them a significant advantage over those that struggle with the data management. So let's move on to the next definition. We go to database system overview. So a database system comprises integrated collections of the related files, along with the details on how the data should be interpreted, which means that the database is not just a random assortment of data, but it's a well-organized and structured repository that ensures the data is related and easily accessible for the users. So that we need a tool or we need a software to the management. So that's we are here learning about the database management system, or simplifying by DBMS. So it's a software tool that enables users to access and then to manage and to manipulate the data stored within a database. So the DBMS will serve as an interface between the users and the database. Without the users need to understand about the complex detail of the data stored and how the data is maintained. So the primary objective of DBMS is to provide a convenient and effective way to define, to store, and to retrieve the data. Okay, so this involves creating a structured environment where data can be easily entered, updated, and queried. So by using the DBMS, it will ensure that the users will be easily and can quickly and accurately get the information that they need. So in this case, database system and DBMS have become essential for managing the information across the various sectors. So we're talking about the businesses and then the government. Yeah, if you're talking about the business, they will have to track the sales and then the inventory and the customer itself, customer information. Meanwhile, when we're talking about the government, they use it to maintain the records and to provide the service to the citizens. Schools and university, as the part of the organizations, also use the database systems to manage student data and the academic records. And banks also use the database system. So they use the database system to handle the transactions and to manage the customer's account. So we know that all sectors need this kind of systems to manage and access the data. Move to the next sections about the basic definition and the concept of data storage or DBMS. So first of all, we would like to know what is the difference between data and information. So data is the raw fact of something. For example, I can write it down here. Can you see? 看得到吗？No, okay. Maybe I just simplify it by S, it's student, and then the ID, okay, student ID, and then S, student's name, and then maybe age, okay. So I will take from here. Let's say Chen, blah 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 blah. I cannot read Chinese. Okay, so let's say he or she is okay. Let's say she. She is 18. Okay, and then the other student. Xài英文. She is maybe 19. Our former president. Sai. Okay, so we have a data. So this is called data. Do I have another colors? Okay, we have. So this is data. And then I have another table, maybe CID. CID is the course ID. And then the C name is the course name. Okay. Let's say M123 is the course name of the DBMS. Yeah, just an example. And then the other course, let's say 231. The course name is AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, so we have two tables. Okay, so this is called data. Okay, so this is called data. We have a student data and we have course data. Okay, so the data is just a raw fact. So we don't know what it's about. Okay, it's data. Information. The information is something, a data that already processed, so we know what is the meaning. So for example, Jen is taking a course DBMS. Take course DBMS. Meanwhile, the Sai 学生 take AI course. So you know the difference. Okay, 看得到吗? Okay, yeah. So this is how we differentiate the data and the information. So the information is data that has been processed and refined to make it meaningful and useful. So it includes the various forms like data and then images and text and voice. All of this represented in a way that makes sense. I think it's the cable, so it's not stable to showing the presentation. And then the data, as you can see here, it's just a raw fact, just a raw fact. When data is processed and used to make decisions, it becomes an information. So information is more than raw data, and the data that has been given a meaning, it becomes the information. So we have a definition from a researcher called Burch et al. So according to Burch et al., the information is data that is presented in a meaningful way to help to make decisions. So for information to be useful, it must be accurate, timely, relevant, and communicated effectively. Okay, so information need to fulfill these requirements. Accurate, timely, relevant, and communicated effectively. And talking about the quality of the good information, it needs to be free from errors and free from bias, and it provides a clear picture of the underlying data, and then it can help the people to understand the data and make decisions to take action based on that understanding. Okay, so the quality information needs to fulfill these key attributes. Like I said before, it needs to be accuracy, and then it needs to be accurate, timeliness, and relevant. So what is accuracy? So accuracy here, the information needs to be error-free and unbiased, and then it should reflect the true data. Yeah, it's accurate, so it's the true data without any mistakes. So the accurate information will provide the users kind of precise insight and helping to make correct decisions. The second key attribute is called timeliness. So the timeliness is about should be available when it's needed. It's timeliness. And it must be delivered within the required time frame to be useful. Okay, I can give you an example. I'm the manager and you are the worker. I need a report. Or maybe, okay. Let's make it simple. Okay. I'm the faculty of the department and I need a student report of taking this course, of taking the DBMS course. I need it tomorrow because tomorrow is the deadline of the system. So I need tomorrow. I tell you, please give me the report of the student who is taking the DBMS course. And then you cannot fulfill the deadline. You give me next week. So do you think it fulfills the timeliness? No, no. So the timeliness is the information needs to be given with a timely range. So the decisions can be made at the right moment without delays. Yeah. And the information needs to be relevant. So the information must be useful to the individual receiving it. And it should meet the needs and context of the user. Let's say I'm the faculty of the department. I need a report file of the student who's taking the DBMS course. But you are the one who's uh, doing the report, but you are not giving it to me. You're giving to the accounting department of the university. Do you think it will be useful for the accounting department? No. Yeah, no. So it needs to be relevant, meaning that informations need to be received by the particular people, the right people, or the right individual. Okay. So accurate, timely, relevant information is essential for the effective decision making and organizational success. Without quality information, organizations may face inefficiencies and make poor decisions based on incorrect and irrelevant data. Let's move on to the next terms about the DBMS. So we have metadata. So the metadata consists of three types. The first one is called descriptive metadata. So the descriptive metadata, it describes a resource for the purpose such as discovery and identification. In a traditional library catalog, that is form of metadata, is the title and then the abstract, the author, and the keyword. That's the examples of the metadata. And the second type of the metadata is called structural. So it describes how the compound objects are put together. So the examples of how pages are ordered to form the chapters. So it's called structural data. The next type from the metadata is called the administrative metadata. So it provides the information to help manage resources such as when and how it was created, the file type, and the other technical information, and who can access the data. So that was the three main type of metadata. The next one is, the next term about the DBMS is the data dictionary. So what is data dictionary? A data dictionary is a tool in the DBMS that stores the metadata. So the metadata is data about the data, meaning it provides the information about the database itself and the details of the attributes of each table. And why do you think the data dictionary is important? Do you think it's important? Yes, it's important because we need to be able to manage database efficiently. So we need this data dictionary because it helps the organizations to organize how the data is stored, how the data is viewed, and utilized by the different users. So the data dictionary includes the physical database design details. Yeah, it's about the information on how the database is physically structured. And then it also includes the user information. User information, the details about who can access the particular data on the system and what can do with it. Is it updated or just read the data and etc. And then it also includes the database schema. So it's included in the report, final report. So you need to pay attention. It's a design. It's the overall design of or the blueprint of the database. So it shows how the data is organized. It's called database schema. And it also includes the high-level transaction descriptions. So it's about the overview of the important process that occur within the database. Why is it useful? Why the data dictionary is useful? Because it helps to understand how different pieces of data are related to each other within the transactions and to assist in managing the data item references so it ensures the data is used correctly and efficiently. So in simple terms, the data dictionary is like a reference book. If you read a book, you will find a reference book at the end of the book page, right? So it's just like that, which is providing the descriptions and the guidelines that help to manage and understand the data. So in database, it's called data dictionary. In book, we call it reference book. So what are the type of the data dictionary? There are two types of data dictionary. The first one is active and passive. So the active data dictionary is when the DBMS takes care of the updating the dictionary and it always up to date because it managed automatically and it's always synchronized with the current state of the database. So it's called active data dictionary. And it doesn't need a manual updates. Yeah, so users do not need to update it manually. So it's updated by itself. So it's called the active data dictionary. The second one is called passive data dictionary. So what is the meaning by passive? Is the contradictory from the active. So the passive data dictionary needs the manual updates. So the users must update this dictionary by themselves. And it has disadvantages that it may be not consistent because you need to relies on the manual updates. And then sometimes it's used for the documentation, for the database structure and reference purpose. Content of the data dictionary is include the fields and then the files and the relationship. Okay. So the fields is the information about the individual pieces of data. So just like this, so it's a field or one table. It's a student table. It's called field. And then the files is the collections of data. It's the collections of data. So if I say I have one table, two table, so it's called files. Files. So the next one is relationship. So the relationship, how each table have the relation between one to another. So it's called relationship. And The data dictionary is include the non-computerized organization data as well, which is means help to users to understand how the different pieces of data relate to each other. It's called uh, cross-referencing data dictionaries. Meanwhile, for the non-computerized organizations data, it includes the information about the data which is not stored in the database, but it's useful for the organizations to manage. Yeah. And then the manual modification, yeah, it's just almost the same with the passive. Okay, I think we have a 10 minutes break and we will start again at 11:10. Okay, 10 minutes break. Let's start the class. I would like to remind you the report file. So you are not only present, but also you need to do the report file. So here I will remind you again what you need to include in the report file. So I already uploaded the outline in the iLearning, so you can just download and follow the outline. So the outline will include the title of your project, what is it about, and then the team member name, student ID. You can also attach your picture with your teammates, so I will know that this report belongs to this student. And after that, it will start with the introduction about what your report is about. And after that, the functional requirements. So if my project is about the sales management report, so I will include the following requirements like sales transactions, inventory management, and then you need to give some of the descriptions here, and then the customer management. And after that, you need to give some of the design of the database, which is includes the key entities, yeah, the customers, the items, and then the purchase. And then you give the ER diagram here, okay. This is customers, purchase, then item, and the attributes of each entities. And make sure to give underlined for the primary key of the entity. And after that, you write down, you give the schema diagram and how the relationship between these entity. Okay. So in this case, customer purchase an items. So customer's ID is belong to the customer's entity. Meanwhile, the item ID belongs to the item entity. And then, of course, you need to include the conclusion. You need to write down conclusion, and that's it. So it's really simple one. Okay, you can download in the iLearning. All right, let's go back to the chapter 1. Okay, that was the data dictionaries, which have two types, the active data dictionary and the passive one. So, in simple terms, the active data dictionary is like a live map that automatically updates itself whenever the landscape changes. Meanwhile, for the passive data dictionary, it's like a paper maps that needs to be redrawn manually or updated manually. So let's move to the important key in the database, which is called fields, records, and files. So the fields are the basic building blocks of the database. It represents the individual pieces of information. So I will give you an example how to understand fields. So there is a smallest data unit. So fields are the smallest data unit. It has the examples like the, okay, I give you an example by using this. Student ID, student name, and age. So each one of these information is called fields. Okay. And then it's represented by value. So fields of student ID has the value of 1124421. So it's the value of the student ID field. And then the fields of the student name has the value of Jin, and the fields of age has the value of 18. Okay, so it has the unique value, yeah, because fields one and another will be different. It must be different. If it's the same, then it will be error. Okay, so that is the fields. The next one is records. So records here are collections of fields, which is made of the multiple fields. Yeah. So each field, which is a piece of data, and it should be logically related. So in this case, we have records. Yeah. Record one, record two. Yeah. And each fixed byte the sizes. So each field has a specific size, and the size will not change. Yeah. For example, if I have a size, student ID has a size of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 byte, then it will consistently have 8 bytes for the this student ID. Okay. Hmm. Okay, so that's the record. Now let's move to the next one, which is called files. So the files in database is a group of similar pieces of information, which is known as records, and it must be related to each other. Yeah. My God. So the files in the databases contains related records, usually of the same size and type, which is facilitating the data organizations. And the files in databases consist of related records, often with the same size and type. Of course, yeah, with the same size and type, just like the fields. just like the records, yeah. So files is consists of records, like this is record 1, this is record 2. So we have two records, it becomes a file. So you know the difference between these three. Now let's move to the database components. So the essential elements of the database consist of four. The first one is called data items. So the data item is the single piece of information. Examples like this student ID is a data item. And then it has also a relationship. So relationship is so how the different each piece of data are connected to each other. So it's called relationship. For example, in this file, we have a relationship like Jen is taking course of DBMS and Sai is taking course of AI. So it's called a relationship. And the database also has what is called constraints. So constraints are rules that must be followed by the data. There is to ensure the data that is correct. Right. Okay, so because it's always linked, it will break your focus. So I will just download and I will show you here. Okay, so it also has the schema. The schema is it's like a blueprint of the database, or we can also call it by the database design. And the schema will show the relationship within the database. So I just showing you like the relationship between this table and this table. Like Chen is taking course of DBMS, while the Sai is taking course of AI. Okay. So I have some steps how to perform the DBMS. So the first one is the define, to create, and to organize. So the DBMS sets up the logical connections between the different data elements and to define the overall structure, or we call it schema. and a smaller part of subschemas for the database using a special language called DDL, or Data Definition Language. And the next function is called input data. So the users enter the data into the database through the input devices like the keyboard or voice-activated system. And after that, it processes the data, or which include the manipulate and process. So the DBMS manipulates and processes the data stored in the database using a special language called TML. So DML stands for Data Manipulation Language. Yeah, or we can say a query. Yeah, it's the same. And the next one, to maintain. Yeah, to maintain. It includes the control access. So the DBMS ensures that only specific users can access the database, the authorized users, and to maintain the integrity of the database and of course the security of the data. And the query database. So the DBMS will allow the users to get the information they need to the information and to make important decisions by querying. Querying is asking questions of the database using SQL, structured query language. So in simple terms, I can say that to define, create, and organize is to set up and the structure of the database. Meanwhile, the input data is you enter the information into the database, and then to process, it includes the change and to handle the data. And then to maintain is to keep the data accurate and safe. The last one is query database to get the useful information from the database for the decision making. Now let's move to the component of DBMS. Okay, so the components of DBMS is include the following. It includes the DDL, or Data Definition Language, and DML, Data Manipulation Language, or we can say query language, and the software to control the access of the database. So the DDL, it will allow the users to find the structure of the database, and we can specify the data types such as either text or numbers. And then we can define the data structures, examples, the tables, and we can also set the rules and constraints. So there's no duplicate entries. In terms of the language or the query language, we can say DML, Data Manipulation Language. It allows the users to interact with the data in the database using query, like you're asking something, but you're typing to the system. So the functions include insert, update, and delete the data. Yeah, insert is to add a new data to the database. Meanwhile, for update is to modify existing data, and to delete is to remove the data. And another one is called retrieve data, which is get the data from the database. And the SQL, it's a commonly query language that provides the facility for querying the database. We will learn about this very later on in this course. And the other component of the DBMS is, of course, the software. So the software is to ensure only the authorized users can access the database. And it will also allow the multiple users to access the database simultaneously without conflict. So it's not only one user, but they can allow the multiple users. And then it includes the activity what is called recovery control. So the recovery control is provides the mechanism to restore the database in case of the hardware or the software have malfunctions or failures. Okay. So in simple terms, we can conclude that the DDL is the like a setting up the rules and structure for the database. Meanwhile, for the DML, it's like the tools and commands the users to the database, and the software is like a system. Yeah, it's the interface between the database and the users. So it handles and it can handle multiple players or multiple users at once. Next one, we will look into how the traditional system performed, comparing the database system. So in traditional system, let's talk about we are in the same company. So this side is marketing, and then this side is manufacturing, inventory, and payroll. Okay, so each of you has each application program. So the marketing, you have your own program, and then manufacturing, you have your own program. Inventory, you also have your own program. Also the payroll, you have your own program. Because you have your own program, you have your own files, right? You have your own files. Let's say file 1, file 2, file 3. And manufacturing also have file 1, file 2, file 3, which is actually the same files. But each department have its files. So what's the result? What's the result? Yeah, the storage. The storage is full. Even if the same files, the storage is full. How is the marketing updating file 1? Do you think that manufacturing also updating file 1? No, because they use each application program. They use different programs. It's not connected to each other. That's the traditional file system works. So that's why in the past, where the data was stored and processed using traditional files, the system, each file was separated from one and another. And to combine data from different files, you have to write a specific program for each task. And if the data changes, you have to update all the program. So for example, let's go back. If the staff of marketing updated file 1, so the staff in manufacturing also need to update file 1. So you need extra work for that, right? So in a traditional file system, the different parts of the organizations, like the inventory, like I just said before, and the payroll, will create and manage their own separate files. And these files didn't communicate to each other, so that the data was scattered across the organization. It is that the system is quite simple, but it's difficult to manage effectively, because when you are updating file 1, the other staff need to update it too. And what's the result is the manufacturing staff forgot to update. It will be disaster for the company, right? So that's why the database system, or we call it DBMS, are preferred, because they solve many of the problems associated with the traditional file system. So let's say the disadvantages of the traditional file system. The first one is called data redundancy, or we just simply say duplicates data. Yeah. So since each application has its own data file, the same data may have to be recorded and stored in many files. Yeah. For examples, like in the personal file and personal payroll file, both contain data of the employee name and then destination. And the result is there will be unnecessary duplicate or redundant data items. And this redundancy requires additional or higher storage space. And of course, it will cost the company extra money and extra time. And it also requires additional efforts to keep all the files updated. The next disadvantages about the traditional file system is data inconsistency. So the data redundancy leads to a data inconsistency, especially when data is need to be updated. Okay, and the data inconsistency occurs due to the same data items that appears in more one files, and it's not get any updated simultaneously in each and every file. I have give you examples before, yeah. So for example, if I update the files in marketing style, then if in the other department they are not updating the files, then it will result in data inconsistency. And the next disadvantage is about the data integration. It's lack of data integration. Since independent data file exists, the users face difficulty in getting information on any query that requires accessing the data stores in many files. So it makes it more complicated. The other disadvantages about the traditional file system is related to the program dependence. So the reports reproduced by the file processing system are program dependent, which means if any change in the format or structure of data and record in the file is to be made, the program have to modify it correspondingly. Also, a new program will have to modify it correspondingly and to develop the new report. And the next one is data dependence. Yeah, it's almost the same. Yeah, the data is also dependent by the program. So if it's retrieved from the storage media, It's required the particular applications. Yeah. So for examples, in payroll application, the files may be organized by the employee to record sorted on their last name, which implies that accessing of an employee's record has to be through the last name only. And the next disadvantages. So it has a lot of disadvantages of using the traditional file system. The next of the disadvantages is about the limited data sharing. It's very difficult because the possibility is limited to file share with the other department. And each application has its own private, has its own private files and users, and have little choice to share the data outside their own application. So it's complex, yeah, it's limited data sharing. And then it's also poor in data control. There was no centralized control at the traditional file system. So it could be possible that the data file may have multiple names defined by the different departments of the organizations. So it's poor data control because there is no centralized system. And the other disadvantages is related to the security, security problem. It is very difficult to enforce the security checks and access rights in the traditional file system since the application programs are added in the ad hoc manner. And data manipulation is inadequate. The data manipulation capability is very limited in a traditional file system. Yeah, of course, they don't provide a strong relationship between one data with another data, so it's very difficult when you are have to manipulate, or in this case update, or you need to delete. Once you delete in this department, the other department still have the file, so it's very disaster. And then needs excessive programming. Yeah. So the excessive programming effort was needed to develop a new application program because of the high interdependence between program and data in the system. And each new application requires that the developers start from the scratch to design the database. To design the new file formats and descriptions. Okay, so let's move to the components of the database. I believe that you are all already familiar with the components of database. Yeah, so data, and then the hardware. Hardware is the computer. The data is the database. Yeah, like we said before, student ID and then course ID, or in a company we have employee data, okay, student data in university. And then the hardware, it's the storage devices like CPU and the other devices, which is from the DBMS. And then the software, so it's act like a layer between the users and the data. And then the user itself. The user is the people who interact with the database system. So this is the advantages of using the database system over the traditional system. Of course, yeah, it's the contradictory between using the traditional file system. It has consistency, data consistency, and then reduce the unnecessary duplicate data, of course. And then the data is more independent, and it's related to sharing of data is possible because you are using a system. And then standard, yeah, it's because it's centralized data, so the database is easily enforced standard for data formats, yeah. And then it's also improved the data integrity and of course the security as well and the efficient of data access, balancing conflicting requirements, improving backup and recovery, yeah. Because we are talking about data, we need to back up and recovery. It will always happen. And then high data quality, good data accessibility and responsiveness, and then concurrency control and economic scale and increase the programmer productivity. Since it has two sides, and I will tell you what is the disadvantages of the database system. Since we are using a system, of course, the complexity is increases. Yeah, it's a centralized database for many applications and organizations, so it's become more complex and making it harder to manage and requiring professionals. Yeah. And then, of course, it requires more this space. So if a company starts to use a DBMS for managing a data, of course, they need to spend money in this space, which is lead to the additional cost of hardware, yeah, and of course, cost of conversion between, from the traditional into the modern database system. The other disadvantages of database system is need for additional and specialized manpower. So the organizations need to regularly hire and train staff to design and to implement and to be familiar with the database system. Need for backup and recovery, of course, to ensure data is always accurate and available. So the procedures for creating backup copies and then recovering data after damage must be developed and used. It can also lead to the organizational conflicts. So the centralized and shared database system will require everyone to agree on the data definitions, the ownership, and the responsibility for maintaining the accurate data. So everyone in the company, everyone in the organizations need that these files belongs to this department. Let's say maybe marketing department or sales department. And the last of the disadvantages is about the higher installations and management cost. It's related to the money, yeah, because the database systems are costly to install, and of course it's costly to manage. So they require trained staff and incur additional annual maintenance and of course the additional support cost. Oh, sorry. And this is the database user classification. So we have native user. So the naive user is the people who use a database system without knowing how it works behind the scenes, like just people who's using an ATM, so they know that just touch, they know how to draw the money, but they don't know how the system behind that works. So that is called naive users. So in this case, in DBMS, we also have this terms, what is called naive users. So the people who use database system without needing to know how it works behind the scenes. So the next one, it's called online users. So the online users can interact with the DBMS either directly or through the specific applications or tools. In terms of the direct interactions, the users might interact with the DBMS directly if they use a special tool or interface to query or to manage the data. Meanwhile, for the indirect interactions, which is more commonly, the users interact with the DBMS indirectly through the applications like the website or software, that use the database behind the scenes. And the online users has a limited permissions. So the users usually have restricted access, so they can only perform certain actions like reading or updating data based on their permission. The next one is called application programmers. So these users is skilled people who build the database, who build the apps and the software so that people can use on their computers, on their phones. It's called application programmers. So they know how to write codes in maybe a different programming language like C++, Java, or SQL. Yeah. So the application programmers, they create the parts of the app that users see and interact with. This kind of user is very important because they make sure that when you use the apps, it works smoothly and correctly connects to the database to get or store information that you need. The next one is called database administrator. So the DBA, DBA is database administrators, unlike the managers of the company's database. They have full control over how the database is set up and how the database is managed. It's called database administrator. So they make sure that the database runs smoothly and quickly. If there are any problems related to the database, they can fix it. They can find and fix it. So the administrator of database, they plan how the database is organized. This includes deciding how to store the information in tables and then how to search for the information and kind of things. Yeah. They also decide the authorities, the permissions and security, some who can access this database and what they can do with it. So database administrator is the one who decided. The next one is the languages of DBMS and interfaces. So the languages consists of DDL and then SDL, VDL, DML, and GL. Okay, I will just quickly explain this. So the DDL stands for Data Definition Language. This is a type of a computer language used to set up and organize a database. So think this is as a blueprint for the database. It shows what kind of data you will have and how they relate to each other. So it's like a special instructions, yeah. It's like a tool that you use to build and to organize the data in your database. Also defining what data goes where and how it all fits together. Oh, sorry, it should be here. The next one is SDL. SDL. So SDL stands for schema. Oh, sorry. This is schema. It's not storage. Schema. Schema, yeah. Schema definition language or SDL. So it's a type of language used in database to define how the data is stored and how the data is managed. So in short, the SDL is like a blueprint, yeah, how the data is arranged and handled inside the database, and keeping the technical details hidden from the users to ensure the efficient data management. The next one, we have field definition language or VDL. So this is like a set of instructions that tells the database to how to show the data to users. Yeah, it's kind of field. Yeah, fee is stands for field. So field definition language. So it helps to create the different views of the data so that each users can see only what they need to see. So for example, a teacher might see student grades. I can see your grades, but I cannot see your personal detail. So that's how the VDL works. So in summary, the VDL is used to create the custom views for custom users. So it's to build and organize the view for the current users. And then the next one is DML, data manipulation language. So it's a set of tools or commands that helps you to work with the data in a database. And the last of the language is called fourth generation language. It's a type of programming language used to work with the database and applications. So the 4GL will help you to manage and use databases more easily by letting you to focus on what you want to do rather than how to do it step by step. Okay, so that was the DBMS language and interfaces. This is the 4GL. So if do you have any questions about what we are what we have learned today? So we have covered all the caption, all the chapters. Introduction and then the basic definition, how you compare the traditional file system over the database system, and then you also know the user specification related to DBMS and what are the languages and interface. Okay, if you don't have any questions, then I will end the class here. Next week, the course will start distance, so you only need to access the iLearning to study. And I will meet you again start from December 2 to present the report. Okay? If you have any more questions, you can come and ask me individually. Okay? I'll see you on December 2. And don't forget that we have a midterm exam on November 4. So you need to set up reminder on your phone. Okay? Okay.